Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to this segment of Code Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. Our recitation continues from Maj Mahalla Tija. Varan Roop Vartey Sabh Tere, Mar Mar Jammeh, Pher Paveh Ganere, Tu eko Nihchal Agam Apara, Gurmati Bhuj Bujavanya. ਆਓ ਵਾਰੀ ਜੀਓ ਵਾਰੀ ਰਾਮ ਨਾਮ ਮਨ ਵਸਾਵਣਿਆ ਤਿਸ ਰੂਪ ਨ ਰੇਖਿਆ ਵਰਨ ਨ ਕੋਈ ਗੁਰਮਤੀ ਆਪ ਬੁਝਾਵਣਿਆ ਰਹਾਓ ਸਭ ਏਕਾ ਜੋਤ ਜਾਣੈ ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਸੇਵੀਐ ਪ੍ਰਗਟ ਹੋਈ ਗੁਪਤ ਪ੍ਰਗਟ ਵਰਤੈ ਸਭ ਥਾਈ ਜੋਤੀ ਜੋਤ ਮਿਲਾਵਣਿਆ ਤਿਸਨਾ ਅਗਨ ਜਰੈ ਸੰਸਾਰਾ ਲੋਭ ਅਭਮਾਨ ਬਹੁਤ ਅਹੰਕਾਰਾ ਮਰ ਮਰ ਜੰਮੈ ਪਤ ਗਵਾਏ ਆਪਣੀ ਬਿਰਥਾ ਜਨਮ ਗਵਾਵਣਿਆ ਗੁਰ ਕਾ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਕੋ ਵਿਰਲਾ ਬੁਝੈ ਆਪ ਮਾਰੈ ਤਾਂ ਤ੍ਰਿਭਵਨ ਸੁਝੈ ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਮਰੇ ਨਾ ਮਰਨਾ ਹੋਵੈ ਸਹਜੇ ਸੱਚ ਸਮਾਵਣਿਆ ਮਾਇਆ ਮਹਿ ਫਿਰ ਚਿੱਤ ਨ ਲਾਏ ਗੁਰ ਕੈ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਸਦ ਰਹਿ ਸਮਾਏ ਸੱਚ ਸਲਾਹੇ ਸਭ ਘਟ ਅੰਤਰ ਸੱਚੋ ਸੱਚ ਸੁਹਾਵਣਿਆ ਸੱਚ ਸਲਾਹੀ ਸਦਾ ਹਜੂਰੇ ਗੁਰ ਕੈ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਰਹਾ ਭਰਪੂਰੇ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦੀ ਸਚ ਨਦਰੀ ਆਵੈ ਸੱਚੇ ਹੀ ਸੁਖ ਪਾਵਣਿਆ ਸੱਚ ਮਨ ਅੰਦਰ ਰਹਾ ਸਮਾਏ ਸਦਾ ਸਚ ਨਿਹਚਲ ਆਵੈ ਨ ਜਾਏ ਸੱਚੇ ਲਾਗੈ ਸੋ ਮਨ ਨਿਰਮਲ ਗੁਰਮਤੀ ਸੱਚ ਸਮਾਵਣਿਆ ਸੱਚ ਸਲਾਹੀ ਅਵਰ ਨ ਕੋਈ ਜਿਤ ਸੇਵੀਐ ਸਦਾ ਸੁਖ ਹੋਈ ਨਾਨਕ ਨਾਮ ਰਤੇ ਵਿਚਾਰੀ ਸੱਚੋ ਸੱਚ ਕਮਾਵਣਿਆ Guru Amar Das speaks of all species and their forms as being created by the one self. Varan Roop Vartey Sabh Tere. And all creation is constantly birthing and dying. Mar Mar Jammeh. And it is in a long cycle of time. Pher Pave Ganere. Ganere is big, long. Pher is a cycle. So creation is likened to a cycle that is constantly moving. And so therefore, creation appears and disappears as the cycle moves. So this is metaphysical. The Guru is introducing us to the idea that there is an eternal system at work here, where this is constantly going. And behind this visible cycle of coming and going resides the Tu Eko, the one alone. And this one alone is Nehchal, the unchanging. So behind the constant change that we see is the unchanging self, who is Agam Apara, incomprehensible and transcendent. In other words, beyond the structure of our material selves, so beyond our grasp. Now, this is the insight that Guru Amar Das wishes us to obtain from the doctrine of Gurmat. Gurmati Bhuj Bhujavanaya, the idea that behind a constantly changing, coming and going creation, what appears to be coming and going, sits the unchanging self. Behind the material world sits the essence, which is not material. Behind the visible world is the invisible, and they both exist simultaneously. Now, this defies comprehension, and that is why you need the guidance of the Guru to be able to get this insight. So it is not cognition, it's not intellectualization, it's a booj, which is an insight, an intuitive awareness of this happening. To be able to see behind the material world is really the idea. And therefore, in the Rahau Pankti, the Guru says, how vari jiyo vari Ram Naam Mane Vasavanya. So I offer my salutations to those who have a Ram Naam. Again, self-knowledge. Here the self is being referred to as Ram, which is an attribute of the self, the attribute of being all-pervading. Ramyaya, Ram Naam. Naam, knowledge of this self, to come and reside or to awaken within ourselves. To such an individual or such a mind, the Guru says, I offer my salutations, or that I submit myself, or that I'm prepared to follow this individual or idea. This Roop na rekhya, Varan na koi, Gurmati aap bujavanya. So, the Gur enlightener, Gur wisdom, which is innate in us, will indeed give us that booj, that insight, that this one is without form, without any contours. And that indeed, behind all of this, it is all sab eka jyot jane je koi. Now, that's the principle, that what appears to be dual is really not so. It's the same light that pervades in everything. And that is the revelation or the insight that we need from the Guru. So therefore he says, Satguru Seviye, Pargat Hoye. It'll manifest in your mind. You will understand. You will grasp it at a deep intuitive level. The fact that Gupt Pargat Varteh Sabh Tere. What is hidden is manifest everywhere. Jyoti Jyot Milavanya. It's the same light, the same intelligence that is also in us. So we are, you could think of us as being individuated forms of this all-pervasive intelligence. And now he turns his attention to the state that we are really in, to the material world. Remember, it gives rise to this manifested world. And so the fire of desire is what animates the world, samsara. Samsara also means a cycle. So the cycle of the world is manifest, and it is fueled by desire, the fire of desire. Tisna agan, jala samsara. So in other words, it burns or moves or animates. It causes movement. And from that movement arises lobh, abhiman, bahut, ahankara. It gives rise to lobh, greed, pride, abhiman, and ahankar, which is self-conceit. The idea of ahankara literally means the I maker. Gurmani calls it haume. It's the principle of personal identity or individuation. And conceit is its function. So that is what, and conceit simply means to think about everything and every experience with reference to itself. It's self-referential identification. But it traps you. And so the world is moved by desire. It creates a sense of I. It then is trapped in the cycle of time. And in that cycle of time, the ahankara, the ego, self-perpetuates. And it forgets its self-essence. Patagavai. It forgets its authentic essence. And in that forgetfulness is the opportunity of a lifetime lost. Because it is precisely this identification with the self that we are here for. And that is why we need the Guru. So the Guru says, Gur ka sabad ko virala bujai. It's a rare individual who obtains this discernment from the instruction of the enlightener. We all claim to follow the Guru, and yet it is the rare one amongst us who is actually embodying this instruction, who has this discernment, who has actually apamare, dissolved the ego, because it's only then that you understand the nature of this trap that you're in. Tatribavan Sujya, the three planes of existence. And then only will you find release from the cycle of time, birth, and death. Now, mind you, this is not a physical thing that's being talked about. It's a discernment. It's a realization that sets you free. And then, once that happens, Maya mein fir chetana laye. Such an individual is no longer egocentric. Instead, such an individual is shaped and guided at all times by the guidance and counsel of the enlightener. Gur ke sabad sad rahe samai. She or he then acknowledges the all-pervading self, because you feel the presence, and you also see that self reflected in every heart. And that is a most agreeable experience. Sacho Sacha Suhavani feeling. So this Sach, acknowledge that it is with you all the time. Sach Salahi Sada Hajure. Gur ke sabad reha bharpure. So this comes through that insight from the Guru, the fact that reha bharpure, the ever-present. And again, it is through the benevolence of the Guru that Sach Nadri Ave, that you get the vision of the self. And Sache hi Sukha. And actually, Sukha means you harmonize with Hukam. You come to be in tune with Hukam, with your surroundings, with your environment. And so you recognize that the eternal self is always present within, man andar reha samai, that it is unchanging and unwavering, natural. It does not come, nor does it go. Ave na jaye. And by dedication to the Guru Enlightener, Gurumati, such a samavanaya, devotion to the self is developed. Sache lage. And the mind then returns to its pristine state. So man nirmal. Sache lage, so man nirmal, Gurumati, such a samavanaya. So through the grace, through the benevolence of the Guru, devotion is developed, and through that devotion, the mind then is cleansed and returns to its pristine state. Nirmal. Nirmal simply means without mal, dirt. And what is the dirt? Metaphorically speaking, it is the sense of individual I. So when you think you're the center of the universe, you're really resisting hukum. And that is the mal. And so when you begin to recognize that you're not the center of the universe, that the center is everywhere and nowhere, then you really absorb into the self. And so therefore, the parting advice is recognize and emulate the self and none other. Sach salai avarna koi. And be guided by the self, jit seviye. Then you will get lasting harmony. And so the third Nanak advises us that the discerning individual, through devotion to self-knowledge, they earn self-realization. Nanak naam ratte, ratte, devotion, colored, those who have been softened, who are filled with love, ratte, vichari, the discerning. How do you become discerning? Through Guru wisdom. They are the ones who will kamavaniya, earn or obtain self-realization. So this is essentially telling us that there is an unchanging principle behind what we see as constantly changing, and this is true of all Indian systems of thought. Their underlying postulate is a polarity. I mean, when they describe reality, they talk about it in terms of a polarity. So what they're saying is that there exists an unchanging, unwavering, incomprehensible, and transcendental self, which Gurbani also calls Purakh, the being, whose nature is pure consciousness, Niranjan, untouched by matter. But this Purakh is the cause of its polar opposite, or manifests the polar opposite, which is called Maya, also called Trigun, that of three qualities, or Tribhavan, the three planes of existence, the three planes being will, Kam, Roop, and Aroop. Will, desire, and formless, and form and formlessness. The three coordinates that really come together in various ways to create the principles of creation. So Maya is characterized by these Tribhavan. And so therefore you have this idea of a being that is unchanging and its manifestation as a becoming, and that this reality is being and becoming simultaneously. So Guru Amar Das Ji is instructing us that we can orient ourselves in such a way so that we are not subjected to the tyranny of the self-perpetuating drama that our ego gets involved in, because it loses sight of its essential self and goes awry. Instead, the Guru tells us, we can dwell in the boundless freedom and potential of our essential self. And by doing so, tap into it. And by tapping into it, enhancing our material existence, not only for ourselves, but for all of humanity. On that note, until the next time, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.